What a trade-off.
You're teaching again, so.
Tomorrow.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now ready to begin this evening's board meeting. The school board meeting of September 19, 2017 is now called to order. The time is 6 p.m. At this time, we do request that all electronic devices be turned off or put into the silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from using flash photography except during the special presentations portion of the meeting. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and also of the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This evening's agenda includes the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, one recognition, public comment, consent action items which include 2 items under resolutions, 3 items under academic services, 2 items under business services, 2 items under human resources, 5 items under operations, as well as 4 superintendent's recommendations, one of which is good cause. Dr. Atkins, will you please provide an explanation for this one item?
I will do. Again, recommend board approval of an exception to board policy 1.20 to cancel the remaining board advisory committee meetings for the month of September. The reason for that has to do with the closing of the district and the need to focus on hurricane recovery.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. As presiding officer, I find that there is good cause to add this one item to the agenda. Also on the agenda are 2 items for public hearing and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Toiber. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. This evening, Mrs. Patrica will deliver the invocation, after which Dr. Kuckel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then after the special presentations portion of the agenda, a brief recess will be called to allow those who wish to leave the auditorium an opportunity to do so. At this time, please rise for the invocation.
Gracious God, your word of peace stills the storms that rage in our world. Bring hope to all persons and places that know devastation and the calm following the winds and rains. Bring comfort to those who grieve the loss of loved ones and property. Let your love be known through those who work to bring order to the chaos. Help us to shoulder the burden of suffering and make us bearers of the hope that can be found in you. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
I would like the following people to please join me at the lectern. Mr. Scott Cook, Principal of Riverdale High School. Ms. Eileen Flores, Advisor and District Director. Mr. Ryan White, Assistant Advisor. Ms. Joan Starr, Teacher. Daniela Yang, did I say that correctly? Jang. Daniela Jang, Sung-hee Kim, and Lauren Brashear, Riverdale High School students. Future Business Leaders of America, Phi Beta Lambda, Inc., is the largest career student organization in the world. Each year, this organization helps over 230,000 members prepare for careers in business. Their mission is to bring business and education together in a positive working relationship through innovative leadership and career development programs. This past summer, students at Riverdale High School scored a national title in the National Leadership Conference held in Anaheim, California. These students beat out 120 high school teams. The school board and superintendent are pleased to congratulate and recognize Daniela Jang, Sung-hee Kim, and Lauren Brashear for winning first place in the social media marketing campaign.
If I can reach my glasses, I can.
Oh. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your hard work.
I did what you said to me.
The next item on the agenda is public comment. Mr. Dodig, will you please address the agenda item of public comment?
And luckily,
School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted that to me before the meeting began, you will be called in the order of the cards submitted. If you did not submit a card, but still wish to address the board this evening, Ms. Fisher, the board chair, will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning public comment are posted at the back of the room. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the meeting, during the board member comment section, the board chair will address the assignment of any concerns or requests made during public comment to the superintendent. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals and abusive comments are prohibited. The time allowed per speaker is 3 minutes. Madam Chair, I have 2 cards.
Thank you, Mr. Dodig. Is there anyone on the right side of the auditorium who did not fill out a card and wishes to speak? Anyone on the left side? Okay, Mr. Regal. Mr. Dodig, please call the first card.
Sure. John McMahon.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Greg Atkins. Mr. Dodig. I'm here because I refuse to let this issue go. As of last year, my principal, taking advantage of my willingness and desire to reform the discipline of this district, put me in a position that required unreasonable standards and was frankly unfair when they inevitably called me into meetings. They produced documentation of those meetings that I felt was untrue and did not accurately reflect what went on during those meetings. So in a manner of defense, I made a recording. I told them that I would record that meeting. I made an audio recording, but the audio recording was in secret. That is where they found issue. Now, they accused me of a third-degree felony, that is wiretapping. Not only in my understanding of wiretapping was that, did that not fit the definition, but my understanding of that circumstance is it was a public meeting, and it's free to record, so long as the means of recording is non-intrusive. So, I believe what we have here is an impasse. If what I did was truly illegal, I don't think that you are a body who can afford to show sympathy for criminal teachers. So your option would be to prosecute me. But no one's prosecuted me. That's because I think this falls into a legal gray area at best. If not, if judged by a jury of my peers, I certainly would be found not guilty. So, what happened? What I feel happened is that I was trying to be pushed out of a position, and in an act of desperation, my principal accused me of something, hoping it would stick. And your Department of Professional Standards and Equity went ahead and ran along with the little farce. This is not fair. If you guys truly need math teachers, this is no way to treat them. As of yesterday, when I went to apply, there were 7 positions open. You guys desperately need math teachers, and you can't treat them like this. So, what can be done? You can give me my job back. If you're not willing to prove that what I did was illegal, then I don't think you have grounds to do to me what you did. Alternatively, you could prosecute me, and I'm not afraid of justice. As a teacher, I agree. If what I did was criminal, then I deserve to be prosecuted. But I don't think it was. Well, I'd like to know what you think on this. And I promise you, if you have any respect for teachers, my resolve to reflect on this matter.
Next speaker is Mark Castellano.
Board members, Dr. Atkins, Rob Dodig. My name is Mark Castellano. I am the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County. I come to you today because I really want to express the positive feelings I have about the way the district has handled this whole incident with Irma. I have expressed personally to Dr. Atkins my appreciation for the way he's handled this. I appreciate also the inclusiveness of Talc and Spalk in the conversations about the various issues, pay and makeup days, et cetera. It's been a very positive experience so far under incredibly difficult circumstances. We still have hundreds, if not thousands, of our teachers and employees that are struggling with issues at home, et cetera. But I just appreciate the way the district has handled this. In communications with my counterparts across the state, I can tell you that many of them are not expressing similar thoughts about the way their districts are handling things. It's been very, some of it's just been quite disturbing, but I believe that this district has the best interests of our employees and our students at heart, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Mr. Regal?
Good evening, school board, Dr. Atkins, Mr. Dodig, and Ms. Johnson. I just actually wanted to come up here and follow along what Mr. Castellanos had said, and just what an incredible job this district has done. From the teachers, the principals, the assistant principals at the schools that were used as shelters. You read about the stories, but you don't hear enough about them. It's hit Cape Coral, how wonderful they've done, how terrific of a job. The serving of the dinners, really, really big. I was on the phone today. I started calling because people in Bonita still do not have their power back. Half of them do, so I started calling my homeroom today to see how many of them I could get a hold of. And just the stories of still the constant flooding and what are they going to do next. And one suggestion that I promised I would bring forward is if any of the schools have washers or dryers, And that is a possibility. That's a concern that's on parents' minds, just to have a place that they can go to while they're scrambling, and loss of money, loss of housing. Is there a place that their kids can get clean clothes or do something? So that was one thing I wanted to bring forward. But again, the hot meals means a lot. The communities, you read about it, Alva, Buckingham, Lehigh, how long did they not have power? Bonita Springs is just heartbreaking when you go down there. And I just like to thank you for the job that everybody has done and pitched in. And I think, as Mr. Castellano said, you don't see that a lot in these other communities. So I just wanted to say job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll reserve comments till the end. Next on the agenda is the approval of action items in the agenda under consent. Board members, are there any agenda items you wish to pull for discussion under the unfinished business tabled portion of the agenda? Ms. Morgan?
None.
Dr. Kuckel?
None.
Mrs. LaRiviere?
I have none.
Mr. Toiber?
I don't have any.
Mrs. Patrica?
Thank you.
Mrs. Giovanelli?
None.
And I have none. Then is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Patrica and seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Ms. Fisher, we didn't take a break. I don't know if people wanted to leave
Oh.
after the recognition.
Thank
So,
you,
you're
Mr.
welcome.
Dodig.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
If there is anyone who would like to leave the auditorium at this time, we'll take a 2-minute break to give you an opportunity to leave. And thank you for being here. Congratulations.
Sorry, I didn't say it.
Oh,
sooner.
thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
Approval of consent items on the agenda are 2 resolutions. One, October 2017 is proclaimed as National Bullying Prevention Month, and October 1st through the 15th, 2017, as Disability History and Awareness Weeks. Dr. Adkins, would you please introduce any administrators in attendance with a new assignment who were improved under the consent agenda?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. First is Carlos Negron, intervention programs from teacher to assignment to coordinator, multilingual and English language learners. And the second individual is not able to be in attendance, but I just wanted to point out the not only the change of assignment, but also what she's up to. Academic services, it's Tammy Scott. She was an intervention support specialist and is now a coordinator, continuous improvement. She is currently assisting schools in storm recovery, and for that reason was not able to attend and felt that was more important to be there. But I just wanted to recognize her this evening.
Thank you, and congratulations to both Tammy and Carlos. Next on the agenda is superintendent's recommendations. Number 1 is the good cause item. Dr. Adkins?
Yeah, again, the first recommendation that I recommend board approval of the exceptions to policy 1.20 to cancel all remaining board advisory committee meetings for the month of September 2012.
Thank you. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Toiber,
Second.
second by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next item, Dr. Adkins.
Next item, I recommend board approval of Vision 2020, the 2017-2020 District Strategic Plan at a cost to be determined as the action plans are finalized.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere,
Second.
second by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Item C.
Next recommendation, I recommend board approval of the estimated expenditure in the amount of $4,950,000 for the bid for a medical plan third-party administration awarded to Aetna Life Insurance Company for the period of April 1st, 2018 through March 31st, 2019, pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Cockle and seconded by Mrs. LaRiviere. Any discussion on this? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Last recommendation, I recommend board approval of the estimated expenditure in the amount of $750,000 for the RFP for exhaust fans repair and replace for the period of October 26, 2017 through October 25th, 2018, pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve, board members?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan,
Second.
second by Mr. Teuber. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next is public hearings. Dr. Atkins, will you please present your recommendations for this evening's public hearing items?
Yes, first recommendation, I recommend board approval to adopt policy 5.021, job descriptions. The purpose is to adopt best practices in the establishment of job descriptions. The effective date of this adoption shall be Wednesday, September 20th, 2017. Next recommendation, I recommend board approval to adopt the district educational facilities plan for the fiscal year 2018 through 2037. Each district school board shall prepare a tentative district education facilities plan. This includes a long-range planning for facility needs over 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year periods. The plan must be developed in coordination with the general purpose local government and be consistent with local government comprehensive plan. The effective date of this adoption shall be Wednesday, September 20th, 2017.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. We will now recess this regular school board meeting and open the public hearing. As indicated, the public hearing this evening is to consider approval to adopt policy 5.021, job descriptions, and approval to adopt district educational facilities plan for the fiscal years 2018 through 2037. At this time, the public is invited to speak on these two items. The time allowed for comments is 3 minutes. Is there anyone on the right section who would like to address the board? Anyone on the left section? Seeing none, I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the regular school board hearing meeting of September 19th, 2017. Dr. Atkins, please restate your recommendations for this evening's public hearing items.
First recommendation, I recommend board approval to adopt policy 5.021, job descriptions. The purpose is to adopt best practices in the establishment of job descriptions. The effective date of this adoption shall be Wednesday, September 20th, 2017.
Thank you. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan and seconded by Mrs. LaRiviere. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Next item.
Next recommendation, I recommend board approval to adopt district educational facilities plan for the fiscal year 2018 through 2037. Each district school board shall prepare a tentative district educational facilities plan that includes long-range planning for facilities needs over 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year periods. Plan must be developed in coordination with the general purpose local governments and be consistent with local government comprehensive plans. The effective date of this adoption shall be Wednesday, September 20th, 2017.
Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Mrs. Giannappinelli and seconded by Mrs. Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to other business, board members' comments or reports. Mrs. Morgan.
I am going to ask Dr. Atkins to speak briefly about the Schools of Hope grant request that we approved. I would like to make some comments about the last couple of weeks. First of all, I would like to say to the financial department, thank you so much for taking the needs of our employees into consideration in the planning for this storm. I can't imagine an employee, however long they've worked here, imagining someone anticipating their need and handling it so expeditiously. I also want to compliment the communications department and all of the senior staff. I've said to a number of people in the community, I was lucky to be on the communications list for the Lee County School District because I knew more than anybody in the county about what was going on. The communications were fantastic about what was coming, what was happening, and after the fact, I doubt anybody else understood as clearly what was happening during events. Having stayed in the Germain Arena, I would like to suggest to Dr. Atkins that a proposal be made to the Emergency Operations Center to have their staff work with our staff in setting up a structure for operating shelters. My experience was that there was no leadership at Germain and no communication. And frankly, I think families and especially children are to be commended for their behavior. And frankly, at Germain, until the roof started to leak, it was all about what can I do, how can I help, do you need food? People started to lose it when there was no one telling them what to do when it started to rain in the arena. And I kept thinking, you know, there's any number of people on our staff who have experience managing different groups of people, different resources, bringing them together and providing leadership. We had volunteers, but nobody told the volunteers what to do. And the volunteers were afraid to stand up and take charge because they hadn't been given responsibility. So I think the county has a lot to learn from us in terms of how you manage and run large-scale operations. I just want to mention a couple of names because we camped next to Ashanti from Estero. She's a sophomore. She and her dog Peaches and her brother who attends Raymond C. Page were wonderful companions. And then we had Marta and Santiago, brother and sister from Pine Woods, their cousin Nixon, and their friend Jonathan, who goes to Three Oaks. They helped us with our little doggy daycare that we ran in our little camp. So I can tell you that the families were wonderful and the kids were so well behaved. 6,000 people, and until the very end, it was just one big community. So thanks for indulging me in my long blah, 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 but I'm just so impressed by our staff and our community.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. Dr. Atkins, did you want him to do that now?
Oh, whenever.
Later? Okay.
I'll do it later.
Okay.
Well, I'll echo everything that Mrs. Morgan said and add a little bit to that. In the number of years that I've been on the board, 12, and this makes 13, I, as a board member, have not ever had the kind of communication that I had during this situation. And this certainly was one of the worst ones for us. But I understood what was happening in every aspect. And you get a lot of people that you meet out on the street that say, why are our kids not back in school? and I could get numbers. This many schools still are without electricity, this many schools still have roof problems, or et cetera, all the way down the line. So I had a response for them because of, and I was even limited in that I had intermittent internet communication. I still don't have internet at home on my computer, but through my phone, I would get bits and pieces and still was very well informed. And I'll mention a name too. I'm sure there are many names to mention, but at one of the functions in our community, a couple came up to me and said, "Who is that principal at South Fort Myers High School, Mr. Matthews? He is phenomenal." And they talked about how caring he was, how he was out with the people, calming things down. They had movies for the kids. They had games for the kids, and anyway, and I'm sure that's a story everywhere. I'm just sharing it because that's the one that came to me. But Mr. Castellano, thank you, because I know you were all a part of that, and some of those things came from your perspectives and your experience as well. But Dr. Atkins, you and your staff took it all in, pulled it together, and amazing, every aspect of this district, from food service to transportation to electricity to all of those things we knew about. So I felt everything was really in really good hands, and I could respond.
Well, I think we're going to hear a lot of echoes. I too had the privilege, along with Kathleen and Ms. Patricia, to be able to be in a shelter. And I was able to go to Mirror Lakes Elementary, which worked out really well, because then our home could be a shelter from people who were evacuated from Fort Myers, McGregor area, and then went to Buckingham and then had to come to our home. So it just, the spirit of our community is absolutely amazing. Our staff is stellar. The ability they had to rise to the occasion, those staff members it was staff. It was our teachers that were running the shelters at the schools. It was us. And I understand that at Germain, if Germain staff had not been there, there would not have been that leadership. And I had concurred, there is a definite need for collaboration. After recovery, we need to make through some recovery mode right now. But we have to, while things are fresh in our minds, have meetings with emergency operations so we can do this job better, so that there are no surprises for our administrators. And they rose to the occasion. I mean, it was amazing. But what we can do to make sure we do a better job, again, the people who were in the shelters, their animals were great. And they did what animals do. When you have 1,100 people, and you're and then all these animals come, and they're not in crates, So yes, there were things that needed to be cleaned up after the fact, but the people were amazing, and their desire, what can I do to help? People that were there sweeping and cleaning the cafeteria floor between meals. I had the pleasure of working with Rob Cooper, but what was really great is Valerie Scheckler came from Rima Page to help him along the way. Just to see that we as a school district believe we are all in this together, regardless of who you are, what your position is, and no job is below us. We should all be willing to clean a toilet. And we all need to go through that OSHA training so we know how to clean everything else up if we're in those shelters. But I'm proud. I am just beyond belief proud. Not surprised, but proud.
Mr. Toiber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to add on a little bit to what Kathleen said. First off, I want to thank all of our first responders, you know, our firemen, our policemen, our power people, our every first responder did a fantastic job in our community. I put accolades out to our governor, took it serious. I would drive back up and down 75, and I would see caravans of State Patrol bringing in Publix food and gasoline, and I mean, everybody took it serious. And then I thought over the weekend, and I had a discussion with Dr. Atkins, you know, our school district, you know, people talk about how much money we spend for a school. But then when it comes time for shelter, you realize why we spend so much money for our schools, because all the shelters were Lee County schools, okay? So that's what we do for the community. And we do so much more for the community, and I just want, I want to thank our people, because we do it because that's what we do. And there is not a weak link in our organization. Everybody pitched in. Everybody did what they needed to do, and did it with such exemplary precision that it makes other organizations pale. But I went to Dr. Atkins and I said, wait a minute. I said, this isn't fair. I said, our teachers educate our kids, and they're not first responders. They're not trained in these things, and they do it better than some of the people that are trained. But we need to get the Lee County government, and we need to get our response committees to realize that we had, for example, Oak Hammock, there was nobody there from the first aid. You know, Dr. Atkins said he went there and there was no Red Cross and there was no National Guard. They were all at Varsity Lakes. At certain places they were, some places they weren't. So who did it? You know, Mr. Matthews over at South, or the staff at Oak Hammock. They just did it because that's what they do. But we really need, as a board, to take a look at this whole process to be able to not expect, you know, and our people do it because that's just, you ask and they say yes. But we really need to have a different setup where we actually train people, give them some credentials so they know where they're going, what they're doing, how they're doing it, how we're paying them, so that people, you know, that we're compensating these people for being away from their family. And so all of those things come into account because, you know, during a time of crisis, you know, we need the people that did it this time. But as leaders, it's our responsibility to make sure that we do it with much better pre-planning and precision. And so Dr. Atkins and I, we had a long talk, and he's on the same page, and by the comments of this board, I see that we did it too. So I want to thank all the people, and as we said, you know, why we aren't starting schools, you know, the damage, you know, Cape Coral Elementary, only in half power, you know, we still have people in some of our schools because they have nowhere else to go. And so, you know, we're trying to, you know, educate, and we've got that responsibility, but it becomes a double-edged sword, is because now the power still isn't restored. You know, what do we do? So, you know, we're working on all those type of things, but I want the community to realize that the Lee County School District as a unit, our administrative staff, as Dr. Kuckle said, was superb. The communication that we got, the coordination that was done was phenomenal. I've never experienced it before, but all the way down to every level, to the school level, to our services people. It is like Ms. LaRivia said, it's great to be part of this organization, but I want the public to understand that, you know, we're not only educating and feeding and providing character education, you know, now we're sheltering everybody, from the pets to the families to the grandparents. And so people understand that the Lee County school system is here for our community because that's what we're about. But every once in a while, you know, thank some of our teachers for taking off an educator hat and putting on a food service and feeding people and doing those type of things. So I really am proud to be part of this organization.
Mr. Toiber. Mrs. Patrica.
So I'm going to hold my comments until the next briefing meeting, only because I think that I'm still, maybe I might say something that will not serve this board well with regard to how the county handled our shelters. So a lot of my comments will also be very positive, along the lines of what Mr. Castellano said, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, what you said as well, because our staff was outstanding. They were put in incredibly difficult situation that I don't think they should have been put in, but they rose to the occasion. And Kenny Dobson is not a name I've heard mentioned yet. Mm-hmm. You know, he was put in a situation where this is not what he was supposed to be doing, but somebody had to step up.
Exactly.
So he did, and he coordinated, and he was awesome. But I know myself well enough to know that I should stop there, and I will be more calm next time.
Thank you, Mrs. Patrica. Mrs. Giovanelli.
Well, I just want to thank Dr. Atkins for keeping us up to speed, because I had people calling me and I'm like, we just have to wait for direction, and so it was very timely, and it helped me a lot to help others that were somewhat panicked. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all the staff, because this is something none of us experienced. So this was I can't even explain it, because unless you go through it, you don't even know I always say be prepared, but you're never prepared, I don't think, even when you are prepared. So I think the district did an excellent job in everything that they did, and so I really hope we never have to do it again. So anyways, that's all I have really, and just that I echo everything that they said, and maybe we can work together with the EOC and everything in Lee County. I mean, Governor Scott, honestly, I feel like he did a great job as well, and given the leadership here in our state. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief, and I will echo all the comments, and I'll just add a couple of things. Mr. Teuber, if you've ever been a teacher and you've been all day long in a classroom with 25 kids, you are a first responder. And this was a situation, I think, that even though it was a disaster, the community came together, first responders, law enforcement, community volunteers who really didn't know what they were doing but wanted to help. And I just have a couple of excerpts from some emails that I just wanted to read, some comments from people in the community. Going above and beyond doesn't even begin to describe their efforts. We woke up at 7 a.m. with good morning from Ritz Diplomat. If you would like a small breakfast, please go to the cafeteria. Would you believe coffee, juice, yogurt, snacks, air conditioning, connection to the outside world, and a private bath on top of it? The student volunteers kept the hallways and rooms clean and neat. Those picking up the garbage did so efficiently and cheerfully. So they were amazed, some senior citizens were amazed to see how the Lee County School District staff and the National Guard and law enforcement, et cetera, were able to coordinate perfectly to handle this disaster. In our schools alone, we handled 22,000 people and over 1,000 pets. And really, I know that there were some rumors, and the news was asking about damage that was done in the shelters. But, just like when you go to the arena to a concert or something, when you've got a few thousand people in one place, you're going to have trash and a mess. But we are working diligently to get that cleaned up so that we can welcome our kids back and get them back to some normalcy, because everyone has been disrupted. Some of us have been blessed beyond words, and some of us are struggling with a lot of challenges yet. So we will continue to come together to help one another. And this really is probably an amazing educational experience for the students. I'm sure that they're learning a lot that they wouldn't otherwise. In fact, my granddaughter told me that her son, who is a first grader, she said, you wouldn't believe how much he has learned in the last 2 weeks, not even going to school. It's something different. Right. And then we also have, for those who do have power, they can get online and keep up with their reading and to have some kind of normalcy in their life and keep their academics at least on the horizon. So I want to thank everybody for their compassion, their efficiency, and their great organization. And I said to someone I was talking to in the community, our people do this every day, even when there's not a disaster. So thank you all. Mr. Dodig.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, and Dr. Atkins.
Thank you. First thing I wanted to address was the Schools of Hope whole school transformation model. This is for traditional public schools. So basically, this is a new state model created by 7069, which provides additional funding to traditional public schools with approved improvement plans. So approved school improvement plans. What's important to note here is that, yes, we are in a lawsuit relative to 7069. So here is a grant that is we're taking advantage of relative to 7069. But what you have to understand is that 7069, there's pieces of 7069 that are considered, we consider to be unconstitutional. There are pieces of it that you may consider to be constitutional. Like, for example, the school district or the legislators do have the constitutional authority to provide funding for public schools, which is what they're doing in the case of this particular grant. I think that this grant supports the efforts that are really in alignment with what we're trying to do at East Lee County High School to improve student outcomes, doing some pretty innovative things out there, like, for example, marketing it heavily to families, the adult education classes that will be held at East Lee County High School. That will be classes that will be offered to include GED and ESOL. Funds from the grant will be used to fund childcare at the school during these adult education classes. So overall, I think this is intended to improve schools. And while at first it may seem like there is a disconnect, that actually this isn't focused on one of the what we feel is an unconstitutional piece, but something that we do feel is within the rights of legislators, which is providing funding for schools. And again, this grant is not to be confused with the Schools of Hope, which are also contained in 7069. And the Schools of Hope are, the opening the charter schools within close proximity of a public school. So just wanted to take a moment and explain the difference. I do certainly appreciate the comments from those in the audience and also board members regarding the what I consider to be valiant efforts of our Lee County employees. As I've said multiple times at this point, I was truly humbled and amazed when I would go around to these shelters and then would hear about the stories from other shelters, and not just shelters, but these efforts to provide feeding out in the community, such as at James Stephens International Academy, such as what you had at Flea Masters and other places, coordination that, of course, Ken Dobson was mentioned, but Ken would actually sometimes get 3 phone calls at the same time, because his phone was being really just burned up and he and Patrick Hayhurst, another name that I haven't heard mentioned, but they put in some incredible hours over at emergency operations trying to coordinate. And one of our lessons learned is that, and this came from a principal, if we could put more staff over there, because I couldn't even. Here I'm at a shelter trying to help a group of people, and I needed questions answered from EOC, and Ken is the contact. And I was able to get a hold of him, but he put me on 10-minute hold. And he texted me back and said, I'll get back in touch with you in 3 minutes, and 10 minutes later he was able to get back. And meanwhile, I had this group of people waiting on me to give them information. But we were able to get them taken care of thanks to him. So some other things I just want to make you aware of that were going on that really weren't mentioned. Trey Davis and his team really kept the internet up and running the whole time within the district, and they had he would have the correct term for it, I'm calling it a data center out at South that could really serve as like a model for other schools, because one of the things I heard talked about is if I'm in a shelter, I really do not have necessarily good information. My phone might be running out, or I may not get good reception, but they were able to provide that contact all the time, provide communications to those people in that particular shelter. So that was something that was really, I thought, kind of neat. We also, the Foundation for the Lee County Public Schools is working with us. They have set up a foundation, which you may have received information on. If you haven't, we'll make sure that gets to you. But they're working with Dr. Carlin and her team to help coordinate needs that we have, and there's a drop-down menu at that website, and you can do it for whatever the need is, or specific to students or staff. So anyway, I just had an executive board meeting with them today, and they also, by the way, echoed the comments of this board about how well the staff performed, but also they really were trying to reach out and see what we need and are willing to help get us, I think, additional resources that will help. Lori Houchin, I asked to start putting together a volunteer list, and then when, and Dr. Carlin, and I think Cindy's also involved in that. Yes or no? No. Okay, Cindy, or excuse me, Denise and has assembled a team, and they are working on trying to funnel these additional resources from the community. We have people that, that are just standing up and wanting to donate dollars, and she's being able to provide direction to that with her team. So I just want to say thank you to that, and we'll keep you posted on those developments moving forward. I think, everybody's mentioned the great job of operations out there during the storm around the different schools, checking and making sure they're open. School development was a critical piece. Our school development team was a critical piece to our communications chain. So a lot of the communications that you received came back to me through either operations like Jimmy Flock or Robert Cody, Mark, Bill, but the school development team was, school development, Jerry, Shanna, and Doug received information from the schools that came back to us. So they were a really great source of information, and they've been extremely helpful with the next thing I want to talk about, which is the recovery effort. We have already gotten to a point where we have most of our schools that are ready to go. They have been working literally non-stop since the stop of this cessation of this storm, out there cleaning up buildings, taking care of damage. So I continue to get positive reports that we will be up and running absolutely on September 25th. Now, the biggest challenge I think was mentioned here, and that was the shelters. And we do still have a shelter open. We have heard from emergency operations that shelter will probably be closed by noon tomorrow, which should give us enough time to get in there and finish the job. They've already been working on that school, but the shelters are where you see the largest amount of cleanup. But they have been working day and night and will work continually through the weekend. Although his goal was to be able to tell me, Friday that we're all ready to go. But I suspect, the total completion of anything like this goes well on. So, but we will be up and running. Transportation has, and this is something the foundation suggested, but Robert Cody and his team's already on it. They're out there assessing bus routes already. So they're looking at, they're going to have the drivers do dry runs and make sure they can get to everywhere. And he's also working on building contingency plans in place for flooding. We want to make sure that students can walk to school safely. So those concerns, if you hear of them, direct them to our office, and we'll make sure that he gets a hold of those. But know that is part of the plan to make sure that not only just our buses are ready, but also not only our facilities, but also our buses and our bus routes. We also have been working with Lori Brooks and her team on the needs of students to make sure that our counselors and our school staffs are prepared for that first day back for kids when they're there. She's also reached out to Florida Gulf Coast University and working with the interns so we can widen our bandwidth and reach more people as a result. Some other things that are going on that I want everybody to be aware. Again, Mark Castellano mentioned it in his comments, but we're working with our associations, Dr. Pruitt and Dr. Desamores, and their teams on coming up with some pretty challenging tasks that we've given them to do, and that is, first of all, working on the new academic calendar, because we have missed more days, I think, than ever in at least modern Lee County, School District Lee County history. And so this is the largest crisis in terms of the amount of days it has impacted, I think, this district has ever encountered. And I think that even includes Donna, which is back in '62, I believe. I think we were out for less days. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this one, they're assigned the task of how do we make up that instructional time for students. And they've already presented me 4 different options. So, and we're working with our other neighboring districts in that effort. Also, the other thing that they're working on is the work schedules for our employees and the compensation that's related to that. So again, very complicated because you have a number of different work schedules and people that work differently during this period of time. Some people had to work last week, some people evacuated this area last week, and they may have been on the same work schedule. So a lot of very difficult, detailed work, but it is, they have been working feverishly on that, and we'll continue to keep you posted on that. And other than just saying it is just an absolute honor to serve with this group of people, that's all for my comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adkins. On Tuesday, October 3rd, there's a school board briefing meeting at 2 p.m., as well as a school board action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan. Second by Mr. Toiber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Home safe, everyone, and thank you all again for all of your efforts.